So I'm listening to Dave Rubin and his Rubin Report, and he's talking about the election. It's coming up it's tomorrow. It's not even in a couple days, it's tomorrow. And he's talking about how it's going to be this big changing event in American history, and of course it is. Then he said he was out to brunch in LA, which is I guess where he lives, and he's coming home and he sees a Trump rally right there in the middle of LA. So he gets out and he starts talking to people, and he said there's debate going on, but it's pretty happy. And he said people are just happy to be around other people who think like them, and it's hard to find in LA, which is very left-leaning, any pro-Trumpers. So he was talking about how he's talking to some people. He even mentioned this one girl by name, which I thought was cool. He was able to remember the name of some random woman that he met there. And then he said he heard that Dennis Prager was gonna be there, and so he said he texted Dennis Prager's wife, and she texted him back and said, "Yeah, we're here right now." So Dave Rubin and Dennis Prager, met and talked for a little while, and it made me think. Okay, so you got this guy, Dave Rubin, who is gay and conservative, which in and of itself is really interesting, and that's why I like listening to the guy, because I agree with him on his politics. And as you know, he did a lot of events with Jordan Peterson, who I really like. So, but Dave Rubin, and you've got Dennis Prager, who's Jew and promotes Judeo-Christian values, and is also very conservative, and he has his PragerU. His videos are incredible. And it made me think, what brings these guys together? And the answer is it's their conservatism, it's their love for America, it's their patriotism, it's their love of Judeo-Christian values. And it made me think, it just occurred to me, these are the guys who are fighting for Christianity in the US. It's not Christians who are out there, it's these guys. It's these conservative figures who are out promoting the US, promoting freedom of religion, promoting freedom of speech, promoting nationalism. And those are all of the things that make Christians able to live freely in the US. For example, you've probably been to a service where the pastor has, and I can't stand it when pastors do this, but they say, we in America, we don't really know. We don't know real suffering. We don't know what it's like to really suffer. And you got to be out in Africa or Asia, and that's where you really experience suffering. And first of all, I'm thinking to myself, man, depression rates are up, suicide rates are up in the US. Like, people are suffering here. Maybe it's just suffering you don't understand. But anyway, I'm digressing. My point is, you've probably heard a message where your pastor said something like, well, we don't really experience suffering here. It's somewhere else. Hold on a second here. Where was I? So yeah, you've heard pastors who say, well, we don't know suffering here in the US. And that's the kind of thinking that makes Christians hate themselves and hate their own country, makes American Christians hate their own country. And you see this with the cultural Marxism, the critical theory. Donald Trump just signed this morning the 1776 Commission, I think it was called, to root out all of the unpatriotic indoctrination that's going on in American school systems right now. So in the US right now, there's this anti-Americanism. It's cultural Marxism is what it is, and that's not what this video is about. It's just that cultural Marxism, the anti-Westernism, it's in the church. Just listen to guys like, well, especially Tim Keller, and the Acts 29 guys, Platt, and I can't remember the other guy's name. It's Matt something. There's David Platt, Matt Chandler, the guys who are always talking about white privilege and white guilt, and guys like Keller, they crap on the West, and they call the West evil, and it's gas. I call it gaslighting, the gaslighting of the American people. Gaslighting is, there's a girlfriend who's always beat up by her boyfriend, and the girlfriend tries to say, hey, you beat me up this morning, and I don't like it. And the boyfriend says something like, well, you're crazy. I didn't touch you. You're crazy. And then that happens over time enough, and the girlfriend starts believing it, and that's called gaslighting, where you're manipulating somebody else so much that they start believing the lies that you're telling them, and that's what's happening in the U.S. American citizens are being gaslit. If you're male, you've got toxic masculinity. You've got male privilege, so you're evil just for being male. If you're Christian, you're a bigot. If you're white, you're a racist. If you're Christian, you're also a bigot. Did I already say that? Well, you get the idea. If you're a nationalist, you're a Nazi. If you're a nationalist, you're a xenophobe. And so we're being taught that these good, godly beliefs that we have, we're being told that they're actually evil, and so we're starting to hate ourselves. And so you hear this gaslighting going on even in American churches, and what that means is we don't have pastors that are standing up. I mean, we do, but it's becoming increasingly rare for pastors and Christians to stand up for nationalism. Now, why is it important to be a nationalist as a Christian? Well, remember what those pastors say about how we don't experience any difficulties here, and you should feel really bad that you think you're experiencing some difficulty, and you shouldn't, because you're an American, and other countries experience a lot more suffering than you do. So whenever the Bible talks about suffering, it's not applying to you. We're starting to believe this garbage. We're starting to believe these lies. And so when we feel suffering, we suffer more because we feel guilt, like we're not supposed to be feeling suffering, which is it's an abomination. That's terrible. That's ridiculous. But anyway, think about what the pastors are saying. They're saying those other countries, they experience real suffering. So what does that mean? That means that, like in communist China, the communist Chinese party, the CCP, Communist Chinese Party, they don't have those freedoms that we do in China. So if we don't want to be like China, then we need to be for the U.S., and we need to be for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the amendments and the Declaration of Independence. We need to be for those things. We need to stand up for those things and speak out in favor of those things before we become like the Chinese Communist Party. And then other countries are saying of us, well, you don't know suffering like suffering in the U.S. So I was just thinking about that this morning, that we've got guys like Prager and Dave Rubin who are out there fighting the good fight, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Michael Knowles, Charlie Kirk. All these guys are out there, and gals. There are gals out there doing the same thing. Candace Owens, for example, comes to mind. Even, what's her name? Megyn Kelly. I've seen some of her tweets. She's fighting the good fight too. We have all these figures, but they're conservative figures, and they're not Christian figures. And I say we need more Christian figures out there fighting the good fight. We need Christian representation. We need theological representation out there, because that's ultimately where all of the conservative values come from. They come from a biblical worldview. We don't have enough Christians out there talking about this stuff. So if you're a Christian, speak up. If you're a Christian, think about these issues. If you're a Christian, don't be afraid to talk about it. And if you're a Christian, don't be afraid to be a nationalist. Don't be afraid to be a patriot. We have the best country in the world, and it is a gift from God. We live in the country that our Christian forefathers and foremothers prayed for and died for. So just something to think about.